saying to our club members, this group that we currently have is the best working group in our 55 years. When I first joined Rutan, we had some members who were very good at fellowship, but as far as community service, they kind of slacked off on that end of it. I'm not going to go through my report on consecutive years because at the time allotted to me, I'd only have 12 seconds per year. So I'm going to deal with in another way. But first, I have to tell you the best joke that I've heard in a Rutan meeting in my 55 years as a member. A Texas rancher and a West Virginia farmer were discussing their work in their business. The rancher puffed out his chest and said, "When I get into my pickup in the morning, it takes me 30 minutes to go from one side of my spread to the other." The unimpressed mountaineers grinned and said, "I used to have a pickup that ran like that." Okay, the first thing I wanted to deal with it was where our club met. In 1946, the meeting place in Greenville was I think it was a Masonic building, but it was called the Community Hall. And it was a frame building. It had a porch the whole length of the building, a pretty archaic kitchen. And I'm not sure whether there was an outhouse, but I know there wasn't any indoor plumbing in that place. And that's where they met for several years. And then the Presbyterian Mass burned down, and they got together and built a new one and paid it off real quick. And so they went something bigger, and that was the addition to the church, which includes Sunday school rooms and the fellowship hall and the kitchen in the bottom. And that was the Rutan's meeting place for several years. And probably the best place, maybe other than right here, that they had over these years. Then in the late 60s or early 70s, the Methodist Church, they jacked up their building and put a basement under and had basically the same facilities as the Presbyterian Church. And so they traded off one and another, depending on who was serving the meals. Well, that went on till after the high school closed, and the community, where the community building was a community cannery. And the Board of Education operated that. It started out as a war effort, and the first cannery was right on this location. It was a one-room school where I started school in 1940. And then a few years later, they put props on the floor and poured a concrete floor on this building and put an addition to it and made a cannery where you could can vegetables and they butchered hogs. We would go up to the lunchroom. We'd pass by where a hog was hanging by one leg. Go up to the lunchroom. That was the situation back in my school days. Okay, but the Board of Education owned that building, and in some way it seemed to get into the county commission, but anyway, they turned it over to the Rutan Club. We didn't own it. We just took the building and renovated it, and with money that we earned through individual donations, and turned it into a pretty nice facility, actually. And over the years, we got some grants to pave the lot and put in new windows and improve the kitchen, which was pretty decent when we left out that building. But when this facility opened up, it was air conditioned, our building wasn't, and we were glad to vacate it because it was a really expensive business to keep a community building open. A couple $1,000 a year, you know, to keep it from freezing, and didn't have air conditioning. But that was the last building we had before we moved here. Now, we should recognize the people who furnished the meals, and we really had good meals over my tenure as a Rutan member. And the meals were served by the Presbyterian women, the Methodist women, the Hands Creek homemakers, the Greenville homemakers, Handy Hands 4-H Club, Cook's Fort 4-H Club. The Primitive Baptist women served a while, and then a few from the robotics team when they came to our meetings, and the Family Resource Network, and then last was Sue up here. Okay. And we've had good meals, basically what we paid to serve. Okay, I've have served twice as zone governor, and you can kind of observe how clubs carry on their meetings. And I'll place our club up there a good bit because I think we will organize possibly better than some. But I'll give the reasons that I think we had good meetings. Was first, we had a board of directors meeting, and you can sort out a lot of problems with the board meetings, and you don't get these instant requests for funds and things, you know, something off the cuff. Another reason is that we set up a program of activities which we published, and it keeps you on the rail when you got something there in front of you that you know what you're planning on doing. And another reason is we went by the officer's handbook as far as how things proceeded during the meetings. And over the years, I feel like that we've had good meetings, and we've had interesting programs over the years. And we kind of have an in-house program presenter, Fred Seeger. I don't know how many programs you did, but a lot of them. And he's very knowledgeable in a lot of different areas. I think we've had elected officials from, particularly in the county, from one end to the other. We've had our representative government, the House of Delegates, state senators. Actually, we have a state senator who lives over on Hands Creek, and he's been here a couple of times, and really good, you know, the hazards that goes on in the state government. And we also have some from the state government too. Particularly, we had a Secretary of State, Heckler, when he was still in office. Now I'd like to talk about some of the major projects that this club has dealt with over the life of the club. The community building and the basketball court was, of course, the biggest one. And the person who bought that building, it's a 40 by 80, I'm sure got a good buy at it because he couldn't replace it for 4 or 5 times what it would cost to build that building now. It was done with volunteer labor and locally raised funds. And it has been a real asset to the community. So many different groups have used it, and free to youth groups, cheerleader practice in the wintertime, but used for birthday parties, anniversary parties, and the like. The next largest project is the Man Miller Springfield project, which was completed, I'm not sure, about 10 years ago. But a lady came to our club asking us to sponsor a historical marker for Springfield. And that was a town that was laid out in like 1852. And of course it disappeared over time. And then it just morphed into more and more involvement. The Man Miller Park came in, and then the pavilion, but it turned out to be a extremely nice project, which is on the tourist list now, and people can stop there. And again, we had volunteer labor and locally raised funds. There's not a penny of public funds or grant money in that Man Miller project, and I think it's something we could be proud of. Yeah, and I'll give credit to Fred and Miss Bolden, because they did a lot of the intellectual work on that, that project. You know, the pick and shovel work was left to some of the other Rutan members. We raised about $15,000 for that project to just advertise it in the Watchman, and a lot of people with the Man or Miller connection was interested in seeing that to fruition. And I might add in that regard, we're in the process now of setting up a 501c3 organization to take over that project, and it includes 5 people with a Man Miller connection, and one of our current Rutan members who's doesn't have a Man Miller connection, but he has pretty important asset in that he and his wife talk about Steve Ellison and Lily. They've done a lot of work in maintaining that project. We'll use Steve's expertise as it goes along. Now, one of the projects that the Rutan did, which no longer exists, was the Dowdy Park. Probably none of you know where the Dowdy Park was, except to some of the older members here. But anyway, we did a little roadside park about 3 miles up the road, and had a little outdoor grill and a picnic table. But it became a bigger hassle than we felt like the project warranted. And so in maintaining those things, you have to mow them and stuff. And so we looked at revert back to Mr. Dowdy and abandon that. The cross and the star, was built one time and then it's been rebuilt. And Mason Johnson makes that work, and we appreciate that. The flower bed at the intersection of Wayside Roads and other projects which Rutan began, but right now there's people who know how to take care of it, do it instead of Rutan members. We also built a fence around the Cooks Fort historical marker, and Lehman allowed us to move in on him just a little bit so cars can get off the road there. And the Rutan Club built the fence, and also the little flower bed that is around the historical markers. Now, over the years, the needs of the community have changed. And I can tell you, some of the things that Rutan was involved in first that you would believe that they got involved in. Some of the needs when the Rutan Club was organized was telephones, trash disposal. When there's no trucks come along, what do you do with the trash? Don't dump it over the hill. But the club did something which would get you in jail now, and that was to sponsor a dump. And Mari's dad furnished a place to do it, and there was a trash dump over on Ellison Theater, and which was sponsored by the Rutan Club. The club got involved in the telephone. Now, you just think of some public utility just be itching to get into a little rural area. They weren't. So they put the heat on the telephone company by organizing a co-op telephone company. And so Greenville got their telephone a lot earlier than they otherwise would have. But they still didn't get them until after 1956, because I remember I was out of college and called Dottie, and I had to go to a telephone booth over Linside to call her after I graduated from college. So it's been and then we got involved in the water system here. And again, the first water system was a gravity system which came over where Lehman owns, and the water was piped up to Greenville, and there was a water tower light with a horse trough right there next to it. And it would be right at the end of what they call Main Street there now. Well, that system didn't work, so they had a Greenville Water Company, which got water from a well over the hill. And then when that kind of got into disrepair, the water company went into, well, it wasn't bankruptcy. What was it, Mason, they called it? But anyway, the Public Service Committee in Charleston didn't want to organize any more public service districts, so there was talk of incorporating Greenville so they could get a water system, but the red sulfur system finally moved in and
we applied for that.
Alleviated that problem, but
Red sulfur.
our club was involved in that.
They called and asked me if they wanted red sulfur to maybe take the water system over. We'll ask the people later, but I think it's what we wanted anyway. That's when it started.
Okay, I'd like to comment on some of our ongoing projects, the ones that we goes on year to year, and people not expecting, but trashy places or poorly developed places. One of the other things is our annual picnic, and that is really an asset to our community. We have the best, Ziegler's furnished the best place to have a picnic you can imagine. It's just so nice. That water running over the dam and being cool. We sponsor and have sponsored a scholarship for many years. And the recipient of the Greenville scholarship this year was Will Heiner, who lives nearby. Since Steve Ellis has been around here, the Citizenship and Patriotism Committee has really been geared up, and we honor our veterans at Memorial Day, and our club also sponsored the bridge dedication to Everett Johnson, who was killed in Vietnam. Our youth have been, we've sponsored different people to camps, and we have worked with the junior ROTC, and we provided money with the club itself and individually to help them go to Normandy twice. And we've worked with the robotics club, and they like to come to our club meeting because they say we ask good questions. That's part of their competition, is defending what they do. Now, as far as social activities, I couldn't begin to enumerate all the things that we've done over the years, many things, but as need arises where we can help, we have done so. I wanted to mention one other item, and that is leadership that has come from this club. And it came kind of in the middle of the life of this club. But our club has had 6 district governors and dozens of zone governors, 1 national director, and 1 foundation member. Okay, I promised you that I would tell you the best story as to conclude my remarks. During the 88-89 school year, John Johnson invited Ken Heckler to be the speaker to our club. At that time, Ken Heckler was the Secretary of State. But prior to that, Ken Heckler was a war historian with the 3rd Armored Division in the Second World War. After that, he was an aide to President Truman. Then he became a professor at Marshall University. He authored a best-selling book called Bridge at Remagen, which was where the Allies took a bridge across the Rhine River while it was still intact before the Germans blew it up. Then he spent money, his own money, to run for Congress and won. Money that he got from his book royalties. After serving some time in Congress, he became Secretary of State. But he spoke at our Rutan meeting, and he told us this story. He said when he was an aide to President Truman, he was working there around the Oval Office. He goes by the door into the Oval Office, and he sees this guy kind of fidgety sitting on a chair. He does something else and comes back by, and he has to go in to see Truman. And he said, President Truman, who's this guy waiting out here impatiently? He says, oh, that's the chairman of the Chase Manhattan Bank. He says, when I was chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, I had an appointment with him in his Wall Street office. He kept me waiting 30 minutes. That guy's got 20 minutes more to wait. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. We talked earlier about the 4 generations of the LaRues. And I noticed they finally showed up.
Sorry.
So
We're getting a project.
we have Charlie, who is Charles and daughter's son, and his wife Bridget, their granddaughter Gabby and her husband Joel Hughes, and their 2 great-grandchildren, Charlie and Watson.
They're outside.
They're out for a walk right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay, now I would like to introduce Blaine Cecil. Blaine was district governor in 2021 when we officially turned 75. He was prepared to join us last year to share a few words, but we had to cancel our event because of the surge in local COVID cases. We wanted to welcome him tonight, but he's very shy. He didn't want to talk, so he suggested Larry Bowman, who is our national representative. So, Larry.
I can't believe that Blaine gave up an opportunity to talk. Please excuse me, my allergies have got, my voice is just about gone. You're probably happy with that because I'll try to keep my comments brief. But greetings from Rutan National. How awesome it is to see this large of a group of people coming together to celebrate the accomplishments of this Rutan Club. Let me tell you, this is a very special group of people that's been part of this club for 75 years. I want to just say just 2 real quick things about members of this club and how they've impacted me in Rutan. I will never forget the first national convention that I went to was 1999, was in Indianapolis, Indiana. So we knew nothing about what was going on there, or we really didn't know anybody in Rutan. And you folks that have been here, I've told this story before, I apologize that you have to listen to it again. So Saturday night banquet is always a formal event. I mean, you go there and you know, men have a suit, tie, ladies are in evening dresses, and it was more so back then than probably it is now. And they assigned tables for you to sit. So again, we really knew nobody. We were kind of fresh. So we come to our assigned table, and I look down and there's a pile of wood shavings in the middle of this table. And there's a man sitting there with a knife and a piece of wood sitting there by himself. So I'd say that about 75% of the people in this room know who I'm talking about. That was my first introduction to Tully LaRue. So I got to know Tully very early on from this club, and he was a very special individual that gave a lot to this community and to Rutan all together. I came over here when I was district governor about, I guess, 5 years ago or so. And I came through that door, and there was a gentleman here by the name of Warren Ellison that I think, again, everybody here knows who that is. And it was one of the honors of my life to get to sit down and talk to that man, because he really was a true American hero in all aspects. Obviously, you probably know the story. He served in World War II. He told me he was at Hacksaw Ridge, saw some pretty ugly things there. But after that, the things that he did in serving his community, serving the farmers in the area. So this is just some really special things that I know of about the Greenville Rutan Club. So I thank you for the opportunity to come and to say a few words. And I want to present President Betty with an award from Rutan National. Rutan National to the Greenville, West Virginia Rutan Club in recognition of their 75th anniversary, organized on the 15th day of October 1946, in acknowledgement of devoted and unselfish service which has resulted in making their community a better place in which to live. Signed, Linward's Hedgepath, 2021 National President. I just want to say one more thing real quick. There's probably a lot of people in this room that are not Rurtans. So let's get some applications passed out to those folks.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you, Larry. We've asked two of our long-standing club members, Peter Brown and Mason Johnson, to share a few memories and thoughts about about Dorothy and Charles. Peter, you want to start?
When I was asked to have some remarks about Dorothy, I was very pleased because I knew I wouldn't have any trouble thinking of things to tell about her. And if I call her Dottie, you will probably know why, because I've always known her as that, but she really likes that nice tone of Dorothy. As Charles told you, she was our first female member of this club, which was in 1994. She served as president at least once, was secretary at least once. That's the most dreaded job of the club, secretary. She and Charles met at Berea College, and she majored in psychology and sociology. Then she got a master's from what is now called VCU in psychiatric social work. So, and you might not know that she even spent 20 years in jail. That was when she was a social worker over in Alderson. She really liked her people. She tried to make sure that they would never have to come back to prison in her work as a social worker. So she and Charles are both big advocates for education. She always made sure we had the Match Your Dollars scholarship. Thank you. Every year we would have at least one or two scholarships for high school seniors in our area. And she and Charles had as many as 18 different high school students live in their home at different times. They were from Youth for Understanding I think of it as exchange students, but I don't think anybody was ever exchanged. But they had 18 different people, and they treated them so well that some of these people have come back to see them from their other countries, and they have gone to Europe and Japan to see some of their students. She was asked, Dorothy was asked to chaperone 18 Japanese students that were in this program throughout the United States. When it was time for them to go back to Japan, she was the one that chaperoned them. When she got there, she got to take some different trips with some of her students or people that she knew. I've forgotten who they were. But she's really been around. She's always continued her own education, doing those great readers, great courses for their books and stuff. She's always trying to get us other people to try to read them, but I never have. But she's very faithful to that program. She's been very active in the county with breast awareness, and when they used to have breast cancer walks every year, she would be one of the people that organized that. She was on the board of the Family Resource Network for a number of years. She was very active in her church, which was the local Presbyterian church, and always what? Where I lost my thing. I think she's totally a family person. She's so proud of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and we're always glad to hear about them and the things they've accomplished. They had 4 children, very accomplished children, I might add. They put some of our children to shame. Anyway, they've done a good job with their families. And I think that's enough. I can't compete with Charles.
Thanks, Petrie. Mason, you got something you want to say?
I don't know. I think everybody's already said it. I might say a thing.
I'm sure you will.
I need a little help from you.
I can't help.
Oh, yeah. You know, I've known Charles and Dottie for, I don't know, since I was a kid, I guess, and that's been a long time ago. So they're a little older than I am. But, you know, we pay a tribute to these 2 people for the work they've done in this community, for our county, for our state. It's kind of unmatched that you can have a family, a man and wife, that are so involved with things, and which you all are. And Dottie with the cancer awareness, every October, she's in the pen. And, you know, I remember one time that she took the salt checkers off the table for the Rutan dinners, and Coon said, "Where's the salt?" And he said, "I want my salt." You know, he's kind of like a little boy wanting his salt, but she was paying attention to the health of the people, and she was concerned about it. So, there's so many things you talk about. You know, we have all these projects during the year that each committee has so many things they want to try to get done, and Dottie's committee always would win a plaque. And most of the time Charles did too. He was always, you know, get this paperwork in the year, make sure that you've accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. And it seems like every year that they were getting awards. But this club has gotten a lot of awards over the years, and with the leadership of people like Dottie and Charles, it's been a pretty successful club. But and I wanted to ask you, the star that we maintained up on the hill here, wasn't it made down at your house? Wasn't that put together?
I believe it was and then assembled.
Do you know what year that was?
No, I don't.
Well,
It would be the
my
same.
wife said to tell you that I'm still hanging on the pole up there that's scarred.
And it's a very high pole.
Yeah, that's,
That
you know,
tip of that
it's really a
star is
big
way up in the
star.
air.
The top bulb is probably 20-some feet in the air. So, I was holding the light because it's at nighttime. But anyway, I just wanted to thank you all for your service to the Rutan Club and the community and our county and our state and our country. So thank you very much.
On a personal note, I would like to thank my posse. Barbara, Nancy, Lily, Petrie. I couldn't have done this without you guys, because I didn't do anything, you did all the work. I really appreciate that, thank you so much. Debbie, let's see, Barbara, Nancy, Lily. Did I say everybody? I did, okay. You know I can't remember stuff. Nancy now has something to share as a token of that enduring appreciation to Charles and Dorothy.
Enduring is the important term there. Enduring, right. Well, as we've all heard tonight, can you hear me? Because I can yell too. When you think of Charles and Dottie, you think of reliable, responsible, steadfast, really rock solid citizens. And so kind of in keeping with that rock solid citizen sense, we have a gift for you that I can't hold up and show you, but we all can go outside and see it as we leave. With thanks to son Charlie, we have out to the side over here, ultimately to come to your property, a field stone for the LaRue family carved by Rob Hobson over at Ballard. So we think that that should be a rock solid reminder to you of our appreciation. Okay? All right.
So, I would like to thank everyone for coming tonight and sharing this evening with us, celebrating Greenville 75 years of fellowship, goodwill, and service to the community. Yes,
Can I
yes,
say something?
sure.
I was on governor for these clubs, Gap Mills, Greenville, Bluegrass, and Marie, about 100 years ago, it seems like. But one accomplishment I made for these 4 clubs was to get a physical address so people wouldn't get too lost trying to find the club. I don't know if y'all remember that or not, but I did that. So keep up the good work, and the food was delicious. Thank you very much.
It was good, yeah. Thank you, Charles. Just a reminder to our members, since today normally would have been our meeting day, we're going to meet next Tuesday, the 14th, at 1 p.m. here. So we have a lot to discuss, so if everybody would come, I really would appreciate it. So with that being said, be safe returning home, and Bert will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.